Okay, Yokeup, you seem to think that an ex-Christian was never a real Christian because they truly did not continue believing in Jesus. You also state that they could not possibly be Christian or born again because if they truly were, then they could not find a reason to refute Jesus or God in any way. In a way, I find that kind of offensive because I'm an ex-Catholic and also an ex-Christian. Although one could argue that they are pretty much the same in some regards, the whole Protestants and Catholics thing. However, you fail to take into consideration the personal experiences of an ex-Christian such as myself. From my point of view, not only from scientific reasons but personal reasons, I have found that God and Jesus could not possibly exist. This didn't have anything to do with my decision. It all started with my youngest sister who got stricken with leukemia when she was very young, and at that time it was almost certain that she was going to die from it. I ended up being the bone marrow donor, and I came to form a very, very special bond with my sister as a result of the transplants and everything that happened. My family and I took to religion, specifically Catholicism at the time, to try to help us through the very trying times that we were under. We prayed, we went to church, and we believed that God could truly save my sister. So, we felt that with divine aid that she would be saved, and that we could just go home from the hospital one day as a happy family once again, without having to worry about hospitals or anything. Unfortunately though, my sister did end up dying at the age of 4 after a very long battle with leukemia. I was really devastated at the loss of my sister for a very long time, and I blame myself for her death for just a very long time. And although now I realize it really wasn't my fault, and there's this whole other little side story. But I sort of lost touch with God soon after because I felt that he failed to protect, my sister, but, the one thing in my life that I really honestly cherished. And my parents soon after got into a divorce. For about 7 years or so, I went on being an atheist, and I constantly refused to go to church with my grandparents or do anything religious at all. However, when I was about 16, my dad decided that we would all go to church and become pretty much Christian. Since I mentioned before we were Catholic. I and my entire family were completely shocked at this. I wholly embraced the idea of going back to God and Jesus. And the day we went to our new church, I was just so excited and happy. When we went there, one of the scriptures that they read had something to do going on in my personal life. I think it had to do with the book of Jonah or something like that. I forgot. I sort of felt like this was God and Jesus calling me back, so I accepted it fully. I was 100% willing to go back and just start fresh. After that, we sort of went to this little bookstore in the church, which was also a coffee shop, which was really cool because we'd go there after, church, and we'd relax, talk about what happened, and, drank a coffee. And I got my very own Bible, and I was so happy when I got it. Even in the car on our way home, I started reading Genesis, and I became so fascinated by what I was reading, and I just enjoyed it so much. And for the first time in 7 years, I actually prayed to Jesus and God, and I honestly felt happy. It was, for 7 years, I was sort of depressed, not really, but I was always sort of outcast, I was picked on, I was made fun of, and now, after that, I sort of felt happy. I went to Bible study with the rest of the youths that were in the church. I even went to a fall retreat, and I had a blast when I went there. I made some friends, and it was fun. I even remember once going back to the bunk. I went specifically so I could read even more of the Bible. I prayed often, and I felt like I had actually revived my relationship with God and Jesus. I was even actually like you at a time, with the whole I know you're like very anti-gay, and you know, your whole anti-evolution and all that other stuff. I was very similar to that. I remember once I was in the car with, I think, my grandma, and I was saying, you know, just all this nasty stuff about, you know, homosexual rights and all this other stuff, and which I'm going to get into that in a bit, but I hate it now when I look back about what I said back then. Even though I thought it was right because I was basing it off of like scripture and everything, now I sort of realize that what I said was wrong. However, some unfortunate events sort of began to pile up on me. My dad became increasingly drunk at times, and even verbally abusive towards me. I prayed hard that he would stop, but he never did. Some of the things he said just got worse. He called me like a worthless son, and that I would make it nowhere else in the world except like his business, and that I had no other option. And I couldn't stand it. Things just kept spiraling downhill for me. Like, my grandpa got really sick, and I worried that I was going to lose him, and I had a very special bond with him as well. And that didn't help. And I just kept praying. My response was to just keep on praying and hope to God and Jesus that things would just get better. But I ended up flying into this massive depression, and I was really close to bringing myself to killing myself. However, I did end up leaving my dad's house, but the damage had already been done spiritually to myself. I felt like the God and Jesus that I went back to so passionately, I felt like I was abandoned by them once again, and this truly brought an end to my religious belief, since I felt that a loving God and Jesus would have given me some sort of sign, or at least somehow comforted me during my extreme depression. And I didn't get a single sign. I didn't get anything. I lost everything, and I had so much, so it just completely destroyed my faith. And I know you're gonna say, well, it was just a test, but I don't think it was. Because when I reflect on it, if it was just a test, why would it have gone on for months? Especially when I was so sincere. I was like so sincere about going back to Christianity and Jesus and God, and I can't understand why a loving God would do something like that. Especially what with my past. I'm sure he would have understood what the thoughts that were going through my head at the time. I just don't understand how it could have just been one of God's little tasks or trials on me to test my faith. I was faithful, and I felt disappointed at the end, because I really put my heart into it, and I just couldn't deal with it in the end. And so as a result, I lost all my faith in God and Jesus. Interestingly enough, since I have fully declared my atheism, I have been truly able to explore myself. I'm no longer this extreme homophobic person that I was before. And I actually, after fully discovering myself, I sort of realized that I do have homosexual feelings. And the past while has just been the best time of my life. My experience was more of a personal one than others might have been, but I hope you can understand where I'm coming from when I say that I was truly a Christian at one point. Trust me, one of my friends knows, since I talked about it a lot, and I even tried converting him, which was funny. But I gave God and Jesus 2 chances, and the second one I full-heartedly tried my best to make it work. And I'm being 100% honest, I really couldn't be more sincere right now. In the end, I was completely let down. So, please, all I'm asking from this video is that you and some of the other Christians on YouTube just try to, sort of realize where we're coming from. Because I don't think that you really understand where some of us are actually coming from when it comes to being ex-Christian. There's a lot to it, and you just don't see some of it. So all I would just have to ask is to maybe be a little bit more considerate of why we went from Christian to atheist.